Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And as a fan of adult animation, I genuinely feel like we've been spoiled lately. Since the late 2010s, we've enjoyed a steady supply of quality adult animated shows. And collectively, they have all raised the bar for how great adult animation can be. Factor in the growing influence of anime, and it's safe to say that the genre really has matured. These aren't just cartoons for kids anymore. These are deep, well-crafted stories that can resonate with a wide range of audiences, be they kids, adults, and everything in between. But as great as some of these shows have been, a few have really missed the mark. They may have a good concept and quality talent behind the scenes, but the final product just doesn't work. That's not to say it fails, it just doesn't realize its potential. And then there's a show like Captain Fall, an adult animated series on Netflix that's billed as a dark comedy mixed with crime drama, and while I usually try to keep a balanced perspective and an open mind when assessing any series, I just couldn't be fair this time. Because this series didn't just fail as a concept and a story, I feel like this series did a huge disservice to the whole medium of adult animation. Everything it tried to do, every concept it tried to explore, it just didn't work on any level. It wasn't funny, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't even compelling in any meaningful way. By the time I got to the final episode, I really felt like this series had wasted my time, my energy, and my general passion for the medium. That may sound hyperbolic, but that's part of why I'm making this video, because it's been a long time since I've been this disappointed by a show. Now initially, this show caught my eye because Netflix has a solid track record with adult animation. They have given us some great, well-developed shows like BoJack Horseman, Arcane, and F is for Family. They haven't all been winners, but even the lesser quality shows have had some memorable moments. I'd really hope that Captain Fall would at least give us some of those moments. It boasted a solid voice cast that included the likes of John Ritter, Lesley-Ann Brandt, and Adam Devine. The premise even sounded interesting. A naive young man aspires to be a sea captain, but when he finally gets his chance, he gets roped into a shady criminal underworld. It sounded like a plot ripe for dark comedy, drama, and even a little mystery. I thought that could be a unique but compelling mix, so I decided to binge the show over the course of an afternoon. I now wish I had that chunk of my life back. And that's not to say I hated the show from the beginning. I thought the first couple episodes did a good job of establishing the characters and setup for the series. It introduced us to this nefarious international crime cartel. They're involved in a wide range of black markets, and they utilize a cruise ship named the Caribbean Queen to navigate those markets. Sometimes it involves smuggling, human trafficking, and even the distribution of illegal boner pills. But whatever the crime, this ship is at the center of it all, and that ship needs a captain. Unfortunately, in the very first episode, the captain gets nabbed by the authorities, led by Agent Steele. But before this can do much damage to the cartel, he tragically dies in his jail cell. And now, the Caribbean Queen needs a new captain. That's where Jonathan Fall comes in. He's presented to us as this meek, gullible, mild-mannered young man who longs to be a sea captain. His wealthy family happens to come from a long line of sea captains, and he wants to live up to that legacy. The problem is, he's a pathetic, inept, idiotic loser. And I don't mean that in a lovable or quirky kind of way either. This guy is every weakness you never want in a captain made flesh. But this crime syndicate wants him because they need a patsy and a fall guy. And in this one rare instance, Jonathan Fall's inherent weakness makes him perfect for that role. As a setup, this definitely has potential for comedy, drama, mystery, and plenty of other quirky plots. And I was genuinely curious to see how it would all unfold. I hoped it would lead to the kind of development that Netflix has achieved with its other adult animated shows. But it didn't. Not in the slightest. In fact, one of the most defining features of this show is how little development there is for anything or anyone. With the possible lone exception of Agent Steele, nothing in the show really progresses in any meaningful way. Who these characters are at the beginning of Season 1 is pretty much the same by the end. And the circumstances surrounding them, well, that doesn't change much either. We do learn more about the cartel, what they're involved in, and who they ultimately impact. But for the most part, there's nothing distinct or compelling about them, aside from the absurdly egregious nature of their operations. Seriously, this show goes pretty far in terms of how dark they get. They'll have two generic henchmen just casually talking about normal things while they're butchering endangered animals for props or trafficking people for a literal human zoo. Sure, there is some effort to mix in some comedy with these antics. It just comes off as characters being casual about doing objectively horrible things. But beyond the awful nature of the cartel's crimes, there's the role that Jonathan Fall plays into this whole ordeal. Yes, he's a patsy. Yes, he's very much a victim of this organization's agenda. But over the course of the first season, it's genuinely hard to feel sorry for him. Jonathan Fall is just so dense, incompetent, and outright stupid that I actually began to resent him by the final episode. He just refuses to see the signs that something is very wrong with the Caribbean Queen. Even when he's dealing with obvious child soldiers and a family who hates his very existence, he just continues to enable it all. He never stands up for himself, he never gets upset, and he is so easily manipulated by Liza, who's the second in command to Mr. Tyrant, that it's just impossible to respect him. In fact, the only one who seems to have some semblance of emotional range is Liza. Being the de facto femme fatale of the cartel, it's not all that surprising that she uses her sex appeal to manipulate Jonathan. But even when she gives the impression that she really cares for him, going so far as to call his family out for neglecting him, she still treats him as a tool. Even when Jonathan tries to be kind and romantic, she just gets annoyed by him, especially when it keeps her from attending a sex party. In the end, I don't think there's even a single likable character in this entire show. Not Jonathan Fall, not Liza, not even Captain Steele. It just comes off as someone trying to make a name for himself. Everyone in this show is either an asshole, an idiot, a loser, a monster, or some combination of all four. And that's disappointing because I was hoping that there would be some kind of arc in this show. But even if there wasn't a narrative arc, Captain Fall still could have worked without any likable characters. Shows like Seinfeld and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia build their entire premise around that. But unlike Captain Fall, those shows are actually funny. And there's just nothing funny about what happens over the course of this show. I had to force myself to watch the last few episodes, hoping in vain that it would actually lead to a meaningful plot or some semblance of comedy. But it just never came. Every character in the cartel was still irredeemably awful. Jonathan Fall was still a pathetic, ignorant, gullible loser. And his entire family are unmitigated assholes to the utmost. And Captain Steele was still an inept, oblivious, self-centered douchebag. Everything they did, every plot surrounding some egregious crime against humanity, it didn't make for a compelling story. It didn't make for good comedy. It didn't make for anything. Even after taking some time to process the first season, which as of this recording is likely to be the last, I honestly don't know what to make of Captain Fall. I don't even know what it was trying to accomplish, other than being a dark comedy without the comedy. I just know that on every level, it did not work. And of all the adult animation I've seen in recent years, this is quite possibly the worst I've ever come across. It had a decent premise, it had a solid cast of voice actors, but it did absolutely nothing with it. Instead, it just gave us a story of dumb, unlikable characters doing horrible things, and the world around them being too stupid to do anything about it. But the real world is bad enough. You don't need to look too hard to find plenty of examples of horrible people doing horrible things in a way that leaves no room for comedy. But we do not need that kind of crap in adult animation. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, take care and stay safe.